Welcome back. Wyze is back talking about My Hero Academia chapter 322. Now, first and foremost, I need you all to stop right now and watch my live reaction to My Hero Academia chapter 322. It's about 20 to 30 minutes long, and it was easily one of the best experiences. This is easily the best chapter in My Hero Academia without question, and it made me cry. By the way, like this video and subscribe if you are new. We are still on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and I thank you. I don't know where to start when it comes to talking about this chapter. It was so great. It was filled with so many different moments that I can't really talk about everything to the best of my ability, but I'm gonna try. I think the first thing that I want to talk about is something a little light, and that has to do with Kirishima, as he ended up being the person to catch Ida and Deku as they were falling from the sky. And he said something that was really interesting to me that would make me want to dive a little bit deeper into his character for the future of My Hero Academia. And what he said while trying to not fall on the ground after catching both Ida and Deku at high speeds coming from the air: I won't fall over. And the reason why I found that interesting is because his character, or his quirk, is based on hardening, and the idea of getting hard, we're not pausing, and the idea of getting hard kind of dictates how durable you are and whether you'll get knocked down easier. And it seems like he has a completely different resolve than what he had in the beginning of the series, where now he's very much focused on trying to ensure that he is there for his friends and anyone who needs him by not falling down. I think that's a hidden gem that Horikoshi just threw into the chapter, and when we see Kirishima in the future, this will be the thing that we can go back to and say, well, this was the moment where he initially stated that he won't fall over, and it makes a lot of sense as to what his actions will be in the future. Let's talk about the end of this chapter, which was actually interesting. The first things first, we actually get a reveal of 13's face, and man, she's beautiful, guys. She's beautiful. Now, this is a problem because one thing we know for a fact is that Horikoshi offs all the beautiful women in My Hero Academia. Well, I mean, you got Curious from the Metal Liberation Army. He offed her. You got Lady Nagan. Now she's not off, but she's pretty much offed. And now you got her. You got 13. It's just Horikoshi better not. But yes, 13 is revealed, and I don't know if this is supposed to be a huge thing, but it kind of was built up for this long time, so it probably is a huge thing. And it's also revealed that Deku did fall unconscious and he was brought back to UA. Well, when we actually see UA, it looks very different than what we're accustomed to, because the UA barrier that we learned about a couple of chapters ago is actually up, and apparently this thing is like the most secure system in the world, and it looks like it from the way that we look at it. The most interesting thing about the UA barrier is that Toru Hagakure specifically said that it's connected to 𝙲𝚘𝚎𝚅 High, and if you know who's in 𝙲𝚘𝚎𝚅 High, then let's just say we're going to be able to see a lot of characters that I personally enjoy. If not, then that'll pretty much be trash, but I really hope that that's the case, because Inasa is one of my favorite characters, and I would love to see him in the future, and this is potentially a foreshadowing for that. Now, when we finally see Deku waking up and going into UA again, this is the most unexpected response that I would have ever guessed, but it makes so much sense that I can't even argue, and I actually applaud Horikoshi for making this make so much sense and being so real. As Deku is coming into UA, you have a lot of civilians and refugees all lined up in front of the gate, telling all the heroes and Class 1A to not let Deku inside of UA at all. Being that the rumors of Deku being connected to Shigaraki and All For One are true, it makes sense that if Deku is there, the civilians will worry that All For One and Shigaraki will then come to UA and hurt them. So they don't want Deku, who is connected to the most powerful villains in the entire series, to be in their area, because they're putting them and their families at risk. However, it's also interesting and very much realistic that in that group there is a division itself, where you have people who are inside of the UA barrier believing that the heroes will actually save them, and then you have another group of people saying, well, it doesn't matter about our protection, it matters about the fact that Deku is here right now and the strongest villains in the entire world are after him. So even though Deku has done all this work, all this grinding, sacrificing his body for the society, they don't care in the slightest if he's alive or dead, I guess, and all they care about is the fact that if he's in their area, it's likely that Shigaraki and All For One are going to attack that area, which means that Deku is going to eventually get a reality check, and this is not even close to the tip of the iceberg of the development for Deku. And in feeling discouraged about what's going on, Ochako comes behind Deku, grabs his hands, and tells him that it's gonna be okay, and that Ida and Bakugo made all this possible, and that Class 1A will never let go of Deku anymore. And we finish off the chapter with Ochako saying, who will save heroes when they're the ones in trouble? Now, I guess it's time to talk about the meat of this chapter, the best part of this chapter, and the part that made me cry my eyes out. I think it's time to talk about Deku. Last chapter, Deku is shown to be stubborn, even though Class 1A has then proven that they're able to keep up with Deku. Deku's stubbornness and the idea that his friends or family members could potentially be in danger is the thing that's keeping him away from Class 1A more than trusting in their ability to help themselves while also helping him. And that was displayed in this chapter tenfold, as when he fell down to Kirishima, the first thing he tried to do was get up and obviously run away. And this is where the best part of the chapter comes. As he's on the ground standing right next to Kirishima and Ida, Mina, Ashido, and the rest of Class 1A are on their way to Deku. And the first thing that Mina tells Deku is to stop all this nonsense and let us help you. All she wants is for Deku to come back to UA so that they can be classmates together and everything to go back to normal, which is very much idealistic and it's not possible at all in the realm of possibilities, but I guess we can kind of understand the way that she's thinking. And I think the most interesting thing yet again is Deku's response, and subsequently what happens right after Deku responds, because immediately Deku says, I would love to come back, but it's too dangerous. There are a lot of people at UA. I don't want to cause them trouble anymore. I can't go back to how I was before. Now, this sentence is more impactful when I talk about what I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but please remember this specific sentence, because I want to talk about the moment that made me cry in this chapter, which is obviously the altercation of Deku and Bakugo. As Deku is trying to explain that he doesn't want to bring harm to anyone anymore, Bakugo walks straight to Deku and immediately starts confessing the truth about how he viewed Deku his entire life, starting the conversation by saying, do you remember what I told you when Shigaraki stabbed me in the Paranova Liberation War arc? Whereas Deku responded, no, he doesn't. Don't think about winning this alone. After Bakugo yelled that, his body moved uncontrollably to save Deku. And he says that even though he got impaled, he just knew that he needed to tell Deku that at that moment in time. Now, fun fact, if you don't know, or if you're a new viewer to Mangavation, but My Hero Academia chapter 285, which is the chapter that Bakugo was referring to, is the chapter that literally made me cry. And it's because of the development that I've seen from Bakugo that was shown in the one simple action of sacrifice for a character that he hated in the beginning of the series. I find it to be the most beautiful representation of what sacrifice truly is, that I just couldn't hold back the waterworks, and it was just beautiful. It was a chapter that I enjoyed, so I wanted to reread it and reread it and reread it, and that is what I did. And now this is where the dialogue begins and the waterworks just could not be controlled. And I might even add a clip to my reaction to what is happening in this video so that you all can understand the emotion that I felt when I read this portion of the chapter. Bakugo says, I always looked down on you just because you were quirkless. You were always far away behind me, yet I felt that you were somehow miles ahead of me. I hated that. I didn't want to feel like that and didn't want to recognize that. It's why I grew so distant from you and always tried to beat you down. I opposed you and tried to show my superiority over you, but I always lost. Even after entering UA, absolutely nothing went as I thought it would. I spent all my days trying to figure out your strengths and weaknesses. It probably doesn't mean anything telling you all this, but that's what I really think. Now, those words alone were very powerful, or powerful enough to make you clutch up and say, wow, this was amazing. But how Horikoshi went about representing the relationship between Deku and Bakugo was masterful, in which every single era that Bakugo was speaking to Deku about, Horikoshi ensured that he drew Deku and Bakugo in that specific style. So as Bakugo was talking about his childhood and hating Deku for feeling like he's above him, he represented that by drawing Deku and Bakugo as children. And when he was talking about Bakugo creating a superiority complex only talking about Deku, he ensured that he put them in their junior high school uniform to represent that. And when he was referencing his thoughts on Deku and UA, Horikoshi made sure that they were in UA uniforms. This is the most subtle and phenomenal storytelling that I have ever witnessed right now. And maybe it's just because I'm very emotional to this chapter and I'm blinded by a lot of things. And of course, that's probably the case because I've seen a lot of series that's made me cry. But Horikoshi just needs to be appreciated for what he's done in this chapter, and let alone the last 7 years in creating a series that can join so many people together and we could just enjoy it. But none of that, and I mean none of it, was powerful, or as powerful, correction, as the last things that Bakugo told Deku in this chapter. While saying everything that he said to Deku initially, we finally get to see the thoughts on what Bakugo thought about Deku from the jump. And the last thing that Bakugo told Deku after us being exposed to this is the one thing that we've always wanted him to tell Deku, which was that he's sorry. But he didn't just say that I'm sorry. He looked Deku in the eye and said, Izuku, I'm sorry for everything I've done to you up until now. Bowing in the rain in front of everyone in Class 1A, in front of Deku. And here's a clip of my initial reaction to this read. Izuku, I am sorry for everything I've done. He's bowing down. Oh my god. Baku, oh my. Horikoshi, bro. I love you. I love Horikoshi. I love everything about Horikoshi's like this journey of 7 years. I think it's easy to say that this is my favorite chapter ever. I don't think you've ever really seen me, if you've been around for a minute, I don't think you've ever seen me have a reaction as amazing as this or as emotional as this. But the thing is, that wasn't even the moment that broke me. Bakugo continued his dialogue by saying the path that Deku took is the exact same path that All Might did, and that none of his choices nor judgments were misguided at all. But right now, Deku can barely stand on his 2 feet, and his resolve alone can only take him so far. Bakugo tries to plead to Deku that if he ever feels like he needs anything, if he ever encounters a bump in the road, if there's anything that potentially could happen that he cannot handle by himself, that he can always count on Class 1A to come and help, as they will all try to surpass All Might, who is Deku's ideal hero. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I told you all to remember what Deku said after Mina Ashido said that she wanted to have Deku come back to UA and them all have a fun time and enjoy class together. Now, obviously, she didn't say exactly that, but you know what I'm talking about. Deku's response to that was that he would love to come back, but he doesn't want anyone else to be in jeopardy, and that he can't go back to being the same Deku that he used to be. Where interestingly enough, after Bakugo got through his entire speech, the first thing that Deku thought was that everyone is already way ahead of me. However, the only thing that Deku was able to muster it up and say, you guys can't keep up. I'm sorry for saying such terrible things. The reason why this is impactful to me is because what he thinks and what he says are not the same thing. We've known that throughout the last couple of chapters, that whenever he tells his classmates that they aren't enough, or that they're in jeopardy of danger, or that they cannot actually handle or keep up with him, we know he doesn't actually believe that, and instead he's taken on all the burden that comes with his thought pattern of all for one versus one for all. And after last chapter, My Hero Academia chapter 321, Class 1A proved that they are able to keep up with Deku. And now it's to the point that Deku is apologizing to Class 1A for saying the things that he didn't actually believe in the first place. All while running in the direction of Bakugo, falling unconscious and falling in the arms of Bakugo as he's saying, I'm sorry for saying such terrible things to you all. And all Bakugo says is, I know. Now, this is my reaction to this part of the chapter. This is so good. This is so good, man. This is so beautiful. This is just great. This is just great, man. He catches him. He catches him. Oh my goodness, man. Why is it so emotional for me right now? Man, this is crazy, bro. This chapter was a 10 out of 10, and Horikoshi, I just appreciate you. If you want to support me, consider joining my Patreon, link in the description below. Or if you're considering purchasing anything My Hero Academia when it comes to mangas or apparel, click on my Amazon website and purchase it there, because you'll be supporting me as I get a small commission for you purchasing something for you. Win your zone every single day.